Hello everyone, welcome to part 7 of building this Next.js fundamental course. And in this part, we're going to be talking about authentication. We're going to be integrating Google Maps into our application. We're going to be editing and deleting the orders which we have created so far. So these are the things we're going to be learning here. We're going to be able to see more use cases of server actions in Next.js. We're going to be editing and deleting orders, like I said before. We're going to integrate Google Map to Next.js. We're going to be able to add metadata into a Next.js application. So this is basically what we'll be doing here. We are also going to handle authentication using the next-auth beta version, which is supported in Next.js 14. So at this point, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, this is the last video here. So you make sure you subscribe to the channel and you turn on your notification bell so that when a new post is being uploaded, you get notified. And also don't forget to share and like the videos as well. So at this point, I want us to take some time and fix some issues which we currently have with our application. It's normal when you're writing your code, you make some mistakes or you introduce some bugs within your application, but it's important that you identify these mistakes and you correct them before you move forward. So I've been showing you some of the issues while we were coding that we are going to fix them. So now is the time for us to fix those issues here. So let's head over back to the application. Here we are at the orders page here where we are loading all our orders, and clearly from things we can see that this is the first page here. And from our logic which we wrote, when you're on the first page, we don't want to see this, we don't want the user to be able to click backwards here. Yes, we don't want the user to be able to click backwards. But right now as it stands, the user can click backwards, and if they click backwards, we are going to get a page which doesn't exist in this in our application. So we're going to receive an error. Let's try that. Yes, you see, this is our error page which we created. So oops, something went wrong. Error getting orders. This is our error which we placed here. So you see that here the page number is -1. We do not want this to happen here. So let's go and fix that issue here. I'll just change this page number here to 1. Now when it is 1, you see the error here doesn't go here. You see, when it is 1, everything is fine. So what I'll do is, let's go to our, I think this here is going to be in pagination. Let's go to pagination here. I'll say pagination component. So with pagination now here, what I'm going to do is, if you look here, this search params.getPage, we are getting the page number from here. This is a page number, right? We are getting the page number from here. So what I want to do is, I'll just say this. If we do not have a page number here, we just want to set the page number here to 1 here, or you could just use a null collision operator like this, and you put 1 here. So with this now, if this section, if we try to get a page number and that page number is null or undefined, we are just going to set the page number here to 1. I'll set it to a string because we are converting it to a number anyway. So this is all you had to do here. So let's go and check this out. Oh, you see, so it's already working now, but actually we don't yet know if it's working, but our pagination is still working. So what I'll do to check this is I'll just remove this page here so that yes, this is what we get. Now you see the difference now. This is, we don't have any page information here, so it is getting all our pages here, but we are on page 1 here. So the page there is 0, but look here, we have this indication showing that we cannot go further backward. This is our last page here, we cannot go backward. So you see that this section here is fixed. So now if you go forward, yes, you're on the second page here. You see, let's go third page. Okay, you see the third page also, you cannot go any further. Let's come back. Yes, now I think that's the problem we had for this order page here. Okay, that is solved. Now, the next thing I want to do is, let's come to create here. Now, the first is with this image here. The first thing is when you try to create an order without passing an image, it's not going to show you our error messages here for the product image. It's going to throw us an error. So let's try. You see, oops, something went wrong. No such file or directory open this path here, and this is because here we are sending an empty string to create a base 64 string with it, and also we are trying to create an image from an empty string. So that is not going to work, from not even an empty string, from an empty file. Yes, so that's not going to work. Let me reload. So we need to go and fix this issue, and let's go back and see, and we need to do that in our actions. So let's bring in our actions file here. Say actions. Okay, we are actions here. Where are we creating our orders? Let's go to where we're creating our orders. Yes, this is it. You see that we are getting the files here. If you lock our files here, you see that this is going to be an empty file. We'll have nothing here. So here we'll be creating a buffer of an empty file, and we are creating an image buffer still with an empty file. So let's lock this this image buffer here. You see what I'm talking about? Let's say image buffer. Let's go and let's submit the page again. Submit is going to show us the error, but no problem. Let's go and check, because we're going to see that yes, it's an empty string here, an array of string which is empty. So what we are basically doing is that we are sending this empty string here, this empty array, right down to our image upload. And remember what our image upload is expecting here. It's an image buffer which is of type string here, but it's not getting that. So that's why it's throwing us that error. That's why it's throwing us that error. So we need to fix that issue. Yes, we need to fix it. So what I'm going to do here is, let me first remove this lock from here. I'm going to remove this image here. I'll cut this image like this, Control X, and I'll bring it up here. I'll paste it here. But instead of const, we'll say let, because we want to change the value for this image. So we cannot change the value of a constant. So here we want to change the value for here. So the default, we are setting it to an empty string. And the reason I'm setting it to an empty string is that we will send down this empty string to this upload image method here, and it's going to return us an empty string. But our validation here, the validation which we define here, is going to pick up that empty string and will throw us an error, because here we are saying that our product image must be a URL, and an empty string is not a URL. So it's going to throw us our validation message here, invalid image URL, which is actually what we want to show to the user here. So that is what is going to happen. That's what we're going to do there in order to fix that issue. So here I'll check if image buffer, if we do not have an image buffer like this, rather instead of not, yes, here we just want to say if we have an image buffer, because if we put not here, that means if we do not have an image buffer. But we want to check if we have an image buffer. That is when we want to call this upload image method here. We'll say then the image is just going to be this the result of this upload image here. Okay, like this. I think like this now is going to actually work. So let's go and check. Let's refresh. Okay, let's try to create. Yes, you see we have our validation messages here. So invalid image URL. Here destination must be at least 10 characters long, and string must contain at least 2 characters. Then for the price here, number must be greater than 0. So that section is done. We are done with that section. So the next problem I'm going to try to solve is this destination here. You might not see it. Everything is working exactly now fine, very well. It's working, but there's actually something. There's a little bit. There's something wrong with this here, with the way we are currently implementing this right now. So, but it's working fine now. It's no problem. even when you deploy it, it's going to work, but it has a little issue which we must do. We are not following best practices using this input right now. So what? Let me show you the error. I showed you. We saw the error before when we were working in the last part. But let me still show you in the developers window here. So I'll press F12. I'll bring in here my developer window here. You see this is a crate here. I'll try to reload this page. You see what we're going to have. First of all, you see these two error messages here. They say use place autocomplete. Google Map Places API library must be loaded. Yes, and I told you that it's happening because it's trying to access our script is trying to access this autocomplete where the script is not yet been loaded. Yes, so that is for the reason why we are getting that error. So let me refresh. Yes, go back. Okay, let me check here. You see, we have another one here. This HTTP, this internal server error. That the first is localhost dashboard order create. Here, you see, we are having a get error here. This is because of a when we just come into this page, that package is not yet loaded also. So it's going to cause this form to be to throw an error at first. So we don't want to first get this error before end of this. So let's go and fix these error messages here. So let's go right back here. If you even come to your terminal, you're going to see the error messages here. So it's coming from places search, line 35. And here you see that a reference error, window is not defined. So it's trying to access the window property, which is defined in the places API, but it cannot find it here because that package is not yet loaded. So let's go to places search line 35 and see places search. Okay, line 35. Okay, we have this init here, and if you look very well, we are calling this init package here. We are calling it right down here. So what we can do here is let's create a use effect, and then we only load this package here when this component here is being mounted. Yes, so that is going to fix this error here. So you can just say, I'll just say use here effect from React. Remember, we can do this perfectly fine here because this is actually a client's component here. This is a client component, so we can do it here. So let's say loader. Let's just bring the loader here. We just want to load this. We don't want to do anything else. We just want to load this package here only when this component is mounted. So all of that error is happening, right? Because we are just loading this component. We are trying to load this package here where this component is not yet mounted. So okay, if you go back to the application, let's try to refresh again. Let's go back. You see that error is gone. Let's first check in our terminal here. Yes, you see that create error was gone, but we still have this one here. We still have this one here, but no problem. We're going to take care of this one very soon. You see, we don't have the other error here. So this section now is done. So in order to fix the other two errors which we are currently getting, we need to tell this use places autocomplete that, okay, I want you to initialize. I want you to initialize only when this component here is mounted here. That is why this autocomplete, it has that option for you to specify that. So here you can say init on mount here, and you just set it to false. With this now, the error is gone. Let's check that. Let's see if the error is actually gone. Let's refresh the page. Let's look our developer console. I'll click it back. I'll bring the developer console here. You see the console now is clean. Here, the console tree now is actually clean. So I'll remove this. I'll close back the console. So what I want us to do next is this tracking page here. Let's build this tracking page here. If we look in the original application, this is it here. If I remove, you see that you notice that it has a search box also here, up here. If you remove this here, if you remove that one there from the search box, you see that you have no tracking information because we do not have a tracking number here. So if you put a tracking number here, let's say 2, yes, you have the tracking information for that second for this 2. Here, this is the arriving on, this is the date in which this product here is arriving here, and this is where it is currently at, the current location. Yes, these are the past history. This is it was pending, then it was in transit, and now it is in hello at this location. Now when it is delivered here, you see it's going to show that it is delivered here, and this is the recipient, the delivering address. The delivery request here is just to leave it in front of the door. This is just a static test which I put here. We didn't have a delivery request, so here we'll just say leave it in front of the door. And this is the carrier name, there's a product name here. So, and here we have our live map here. So this is what we are going to be building in this section here. Like I told you before, this is something you can use for your small retail business, probably something like a restaurant that you control your own shipment and delivering here. But when you're operating something that will involve logistic, I don't think you should handle this, because the logistic company will have a better ship tracker. Yes, that you can always redirect your customers to their site to track their history, to track the order. Or better still, if you decide to build your own, you need to build it in such a way that it can be integrated with delivery agents, yes, or with logistic companies, because so that whenever the product is moving from one terminal to the other, it gets updated to your application as well. So this is an oversimplified version of a shipment tracking application here, oversimplified. So with that said, let's go and see how we can implement this simple page here. I'll come back here. Let's go right down to order tracker. Let's see. Order. Okay, this is tracking here. But let's go to where we have our pages. Okay, this tracking page here. First thing I'm going to do here, I'm just going to remove this, and I'll bring in a main section here, and we need to bring in our up bar here. Remember, up bar like this, and it's expecting us to pass something, which I'm going to pass a React fragment for now. And right down here, I'll give a p. Here is the class name. Text is going to be x large. On medium device, our text is going to be 2x large, like that. Font is going to be bold, font bold, and text is going to be indigo 100. And for the text here, I'm just going to say tracking. Down here, I'll have another div here where I'll set the width here to 40. On medium devices, I want to set the width here to, I'll just set something custom here. This is 800 pixels, and I'll set this to relative. In here, we are going to have our tracking input. So I'm going to create a component for that. So tracking input. Let's just give this text like this for now. So I'll come over to right down to our UI here. So we need that only in this tracking folder here. So I'm going to create a new file here. I'll say tracking input.txs rfce. This is going to be tracking input. The first thing I'm going to do here, since this is going to be a client component, we need to say use client here. Don't forget that. Now, since this component is closely related to our search component here, I think this is it. Search, yes, where we are creating a debounce function and we are doing all of this work here. I'm going to copy everything which we have here. I'll copy this and I'll bring it here. I'll replace this. Don't worry about the errors. We are going to fix everything about the errors later. And I'm going to copy all of this too, because we need this. Come here, and I will just paste all of that after this, okay, like this. Now we need to bring in some of this imports. Use path name. Use this is going to come from next navigation, don't forget. And here I'll just say tracking number here. Instead of search, you say tracking number. And here is going to be tracking number as well. We need to bring in this debounce. Okay. We need to bring this debounce from our utilities function. Also, we need to bring this magnifying glass. And now this tracking input here is done. The default value here, please don't forget to change the default value here, and also this these names here. Tracking, and here I'll just say this is small t. This is going to be tracking. Here is going to be tracking number, because we are passing tracking number here, so we need to get the tracking number from here. Okay, now with this, I think this input here is done. Let's go to our page here and bring in this input instead of this here. Say tracking input. Okay, we have it here. Okay, we need to also change this here. Search for orders, we need to change that. Put your tracking number here. Okay, this is great. Now let's work on this section. This one down here, the summary information section. So we are back here. The first thing I'm going to do here is to go to our Prisma. This is Prisma. Here, I want to get another. I want to do another query here, which is to get. This is get orders. I want to get order information. We don't have that, so we need to get order information here. Or let's just say get order by ID. I don't want to do it like this. So instead of orders here, I'm going to say this is going to be tracking like this, and I'll say find first where order ID is equals to order, and we also want to put another condition here because we want to include orders. We want to include the order object here. So what we are actually searching for is the tracking information, and we are including the order. Remember, these two are related. It's a one-to-one relation. So when you can fetch for one and you bring in the other one. Okay, like this, we get order by ID here. Or I'll just change back the name to tracking info. Say tracking info. Let's say get tracking info. Okay, this name is better. Let's come back to our page here. This is where we need to get bring in the name. So I need to make this function this here an asynchronous function. I'll say const get order info tracking info await get tracking info, and we need to pass an ID here. Let me just pass one here just to hard code it to see what we'll get. Okay, we have it here. So you see this everything here, the arrival time, the order ID, status, latitude, longitude, location. So the information here, and if you look here, we also have the order information baked right into this order here. The first thing is we need to get the tracking number from our input text. Yes, if a user have put in a tracking number, we need to retrieve the tracking number. And you know that in every page here, there is a search param. You can get the search parameter from here. So here we say search param here. This is going to be not like this. I'll just say tracking number, which is going to be of type string. The search param here is actually optional, like this, for the type. This is either going to be string or undefined. String or undefined. Yes, this is correct. So I need to destructure it here. I'll say const tracking number here. If there is search.tracking number, we want to get the tracking number. Else here we just want to set it to an empty string like this, and now I can just pass the tracking number here. Yep. You see, now we are getting null here because we don't have anything there. We need to come down here after the up bar here. Let me just minimize the up bar here. Here I'll say if we do not have tracking information, yes, what do we want to do here? Here I'll just give a div like this. The class name here was flex justified center item center, and the height here I'll just say 500 pixels, and in here I'm going to give this p element here, and the text is going to read no tracking info found. I'm going to increase this a bit. This is probably 4. Okay, in here now I'm going to write some styles here. This is where we are going to write most of our styles. So the first here is going to be an h1 here, and I'll say general information. Class name text is going to be large, while on medium devices the text is going to be 2x large, font bold, and a margin top of 8. Immediately after this, we're going to have a div here. To speed up this section here, I'm just going to give the styles for this this table here. It's just a bunch of divs which we are just placing elements around them. As you can see here, we just have a div. Now we have this format date. We need to bring in our format date here. Okay, we don't have format time. Everything is date here, so I'm going to remove this. Remember here, this format date, it also takes a time here, so we can say set time. We just set it true here. It's going to give us the time, so I can remove this. We don't need that there. Okay, we have delivery status. Okay, everything here is fine. Let's just check this before we continue. Okay, no tracking info found, so let's just put 1 here. Yes, you have the general information for this first here. This is the arrival time here, the product name, the carrier name, and the delivery request. So this is the recipient here. Now what we have to do here is create this timeline here. This tracking history here. You have to create this tracking history. You're going to create a component for that. So for that, let's go to the application. I'm going to head over to tracking here. We already have tracking input under this folder. We're going to add another file here. We'll say tracking history.txs. Now come back to the page. We need to bring in the tracking history here. But first, I'm going to copy this. The same thing I'm going to put here. This is going to be tracking history. After that, I'm going to have a div here. And in here, I'll just say on medium devices, only on medium devices here, I want to have a px, a padding. It's important you put this, because the way I wrote the styles here, you need to put this class here. Here, I'm just going to paste the tracking history here. Now, we are going to pass the tracking information here. The tracking info, we are going to pass tracking info in this tracking history. And also, I'm going to pass in the status here. I'll say status here is going to be tracking info dot order dot status. We don't even need to put this to pass in the status here, because our tracking info here already contains the status. So this here is redundant. We don't need that here, because if you hover your mouse over this tracking info here, you already have a status here. So this is status of string here. So you can remove that. You go to the history and provide the type for it. So here, you come back to history here. Then we can get the type for it. So here, I'm just going to say tracking info. This is going to be of type tracking. This tracking is going to be coming from Prisma. I'm going to take this type from Prisma client. I'm going to create a function here in order to make our lives easy. I'll create another function here that's going to keep track of our steps, our timeline steps. So here I'll just say const timeline step. So here we're going to get some properties here. I'll say title and active type and also children. We'll provide the types for all of it. Now there's some, let me give more space here so that we see all the properties of these children here. This here have to be optional, these children here, because we necessarily must not have the children for this element. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste the code here and just explain the way the steps work for you. Yes, as you can see, these are just the steps, just some few codes which I wrote here. You see here we are just setting this container here to flex, and remember where we are going to be importing this component here is a flex container. That's why I'm setting flex here to -1 here, because where we will be importing this container, we're going to make it a flex container. And the column here, I'm setting the flex here to column. Then for large screen sizes, I'm setting the flex here to row. So item center, justified center, width full, and we are conditionally setting the type here. If type is equals to delivered, then we want to set flex to go here. So you can go over the code is and check it. We're just putting some div. I didn't make the code for this step to be very difficult, so that's why I just wanted to use like divs, no after and before pseudo classes here. So I just wanted to use div so that everyone can look at it and it's understandable. Yeah, so just go over and look at it. Then for the title, we are just splitting the title by comma here, and we are taking the first the first word here from the title, because the title here is actually is obviously going to be our main text. Yes, the title here is going to be the main text. Now, since we have this, now let's come right down to this tracking here. I'm going to bring in some few things here. First, a const, comma, location is going to come from tracking info dot. We have the location there, and I want to create the steps here. This is steps. Is going to be an array like this. Now, each array is going to be an object here, and it contains the title, which I'm going to set. The first one is going to be pending, like this, and it also contains an active here. And what I want to do is I want to conditionally set this active status. I want to conditionally set the active status. So for that, I'm going to bring in status from tracking info. So rather than doing all of this here, I'm just going to destructure location and status here. And now I can say status. If status is equals to pending here, only then we want to set location to unknown. We're also going to have an icon, and the icon here, I'm going to say this is going to be a circle stack icon. So I'm going to copy this. We're going to have like 4 of them because we have 4 steps. So I'm going to, this is the first steps. This is the first step. Then the second step here, this is going to be in transit. The title here is going to be in transit. The status here is going to be on the way. Let's check active here. We are setting active by checking if status is equals to on the way, and location is equals to unknown. Then we want to set that this product is in transit. Now let's just change the icon. It's going to be the rocket launch icon. Rocket launch icon. Now let's do the same thing for the next one. Here, the title here is actually going to be location. Location here, whatever we're going to get from this location property here. So here, the active condition I'm going to give here is if status is different. If status is different from delivered, and at the same time, location here, location is different from unknown, not equals to unknown. If location is different from unknown, then the status here is going to be active. So here, I'll just give a map pin for the icon. Then the last here is going to be the actual delivered status here. Let's say delivered. If only status is equals to delivered here. Whenever the status is just set to delivered here, just we'll have to remove this location. We don't need this location property here. And here, the icon is going to be home. home icon. So we have the steps here now. I'm going to give a class name here, like this. Okay, flex. I told you that we're going to wrap that timeline here, so that's why I'm setting this to flex. The width here is going to be 32. On medium device, we want the width to be full, and the height here is going to be 500 pixels. On medium device here, the height is just going to be feet. Flex is going to be colon, while on medium device here, flex is going to be role, items center, justified between, so in here now we just need to loop over our steps. So here I'll say steps.map. We need to pass in we need to bring in this timeline steps here. The first thing is the key. We need to pass the key for the steps. The title here is going to be step.title. Yes, and also for the type here, yes, just give this semicolon here for this error to go away, because no matter what, we are going to have an order here. Yes, a tracking information here. When we put our tracking information, we're going to have a tracking information here. So you can just put this question mark here in order to ignore this warning message here. So with this, I'll remove these last names here because we are already styling this in our timeline steps here. So we don't need these styles here. So I'm going to remove it. Okay, so let's come and check. Okay, this is it. We have tracking history here. This is our timeline here. This is the current location of this product. It's at Augusta, Richmond County here. This is the current location. Now this text is cutting off here. Yes, let's check on smaller devices and see how it's looking. Okay, this is how it's going to look on smaller devices here. Okay, it's cutting off right down here. Yeah, we need to adjust this, but the timeline is vertically here like this, which is good. Let's actually just fix that problem at once. So let's fix this problem here, and also we need to give a margin bottom to this header here, this head element. So come here, we need to do that in the page here. Here I'll just give margin bottom of like 1. I'll come up here, I'll give some styles to this class here so that we don't have that weird layout there. Also the height is going to be full, and overflow I'll just set to overflow Y to auto. Let's check it now. Okay, it's looking better. It's fine now actually. Yes, we have a margin here. Good. Let's try to get another, let's say 4. Yes, you see the order 4, this is where it is at the moment. So if we come to orders here, I want to just copy an order ID here. Let's copy this first order ID here and see where it's going to be. Come to tracking, just paste it here. Yes, you see where it is. It's appending here, and look at the location here is unknown here. We don't yet know this current location here. That's why you see unknown here and pending here. Let's actually go to the orders and see if, because we have a button to track orders here. This is it here. If we try to click here, let's say yes, it's taking us here. You see, because we already implemented it, so it's taking us to the tracking page. It's actually taking us to the tracking page. Now if we come to orders again and try to click on the product that is delivered here, you'll see that the product is here. Instead of delivered here, is still in liver mode here. That is because our status is not matching the status in our tracking and the status in the orders. They're not the same, and that is my mistake when I was preparing the data. When I was preparing the data for this course here, I didn't provide for the status field. So what I'll do is I'm going to update the data. So you can go to the description of this particular page, and then you copy the data from it, or just go to the overall GitHub repository of this project. You're going to see the updated code. You copy it from there, because let me show you actually what I'm talking about here. Let's go to SQLite. This SQLite Explorer. Let's go to tracking info. If you look at tracking info, let's go right down. You'll see that all our orders, the status are pending, because that's the default. You see, that's the default. So for this data, I didn't provide the status here for tracking. Yes, it skipped my mind. I forgot to provide the column here for tracking. So, but if you go to the description of this video now, it's going to be available. So you can copy it from there and replace with what you had previously. So now I've changed all the status. Let's click on these orders again. Let's click on the orders here. I think this is tracking, not orders, tracking. You see, we have changed the orders now. Everything is okay. So you can go and copy back this file, this particular file here. Yes, go and copy this one and use but this one here. So I'm going to close this. Let's go back to the application. Everything should be okay by now. So that's Prisma Studio. I use the Prisma Studio to change, because we don't yet have the functionality to edit our orders. So if you come here now, you see that this order here is actually delivered here. It's delivered here. So that is it. This is how this section is working. Now we just need to plug in the map, which we, yes, let's go and plug in our map here. Beneath this, we're going to have our map. So I'll head back right down to the application here. This is our page. I'm going to create, let's close the SQLite Explorer there. Let's come right down to tracking here. I'm going to create another file in this tracking. I'm going to call this map.txl. Here, I'll say rfce. I'll say tracking map. So in order to use our map here, I'm going to go to let's go to place search here. There's one thing we need to do in place search, because I want to reuse this loader here. This is okay. Yes, I want to replace this loader here, because right now we are loading only the places API, but we don't want to load only the places API. We want to load with the order. So here I'm going to cut all of this. Rather, I'm going to cut like this, and I'll place it up here just immediately after this interface. Out of our folder, I'll say order, and now I just need to export it, because I want to use it also. I'm going to import other libraries which I want to use here. I want to use maps, and also I want to use markers like this. So I've included these libraries, so I'm going to use here. We have map and marker. So let's come to the map here. I'll say class name. I want to give a margin top of this is going to be, let's say 6. I think we gave 6 the other time, that's why I'm just giving 6 there. And in here I'll say h1. Here I'll just say live location. Then down here I'm going to have another div which is going to have our map, but this div here is going to have an ID here of map. You can call it whatever you want, but you need to also specify it when you are calling your map function. So here I want to get a height of like 400 pixels like this. Width is going to be full, and So what can we do here again? Let me give some class names here. Actually, I want to copy the same classes which we have here. Yes, I'll copy the classes and bring them here. Okay. Now the map, we need to call our map function here. So since we are already exporting loader, I'll just say loader dot import libraries here. The library here I'm going to use is, we have a map. So in here, we are calling this document.getElement by ID here. Get element by ID, and we are passing the map here. This map is this ID which we are putting here. So this, we are setting the height. The requirement that is here is that you need to must set a height here. If you don't set a height, the map is not going to show. Here we are receiving an error here. That's because the argument of type HTML element or not is not assignable to parameter type of HTML. So here you can just say as HTML element, HTML element. So just like that is going to work. But now you know that these are not our live latitude and longitude, so we are going to bring in our live latitude and longitude here. And the very first thing you need to do here is to make this component here a client component. If not, you're going to run into some problems. Use client. So let's go back. Let's first import this in a page. Let's bring in the map. Just after this, I'll say map tracking map. Yes, call it tracking map. Let's check it. Up, something went wrong. Can't read property of undefined code. Let's reload and see. Okay, we have the map here. But if you look at the title, it's entering here. So because the map is kind of relative here, so we need to give some more room up here. So let's come to track map. Instead of this, I'll give something like 16. Let's check. Okay, 16 is good, I think. Let's scroll down a bit. Okay, 16 is fine. So what I need to do is, let's come to this picture. We need to pass some props here. The same tracking info. Let's say tracking info. Tracking info. We need to get a tracking info. Here is going to be tracking info, and it is going to come from tracking from Prisma client tracking. So what I need here, I need to get some things from here. I'll say const. I need to get the location, latitude, and longitude. I also need to change this zoom. I'll change the zoom level here. Let's just say 10. I'll put it to 10. Now the latitude here, I'll just say latitude here. Now this latitude here is expecting a number, so we'll just say it's a float. We'll pass it to a float. You see, pass float. Okay, it's complaining here, but it's just for the same reason. We're always going to have this latitude here whenever this page loads, so you can just pass it like that. And we're going to do the same thing here. Let's say pass float. I'll remove this, and here is going to be longitude. Like this. So the same thing here. So just copy this, because the marker, the location, the position of the marker is the same as the position of our map, where we want to center our mapping. So for the title here, I'm just going to call the location here. So let's see this now. Yes, you see, this is it here. They are here. Now look at this location. This location could be anywhere in the world, anywhere. So that's why you see everything is just white, but the map is here. If you try to zoom out like this, you see we are starting to see some names here. You see, this here is just like we have vegetation here, but there is nothing here. It's just in an empty space. That's because, as I told you before, that the data was just auto-generated. Yeah, so the location can be anywhere. So what I'm going to do is, when we begin to put in our own locations that we know, you're going to see that it's going to map directly to that particular location. So for that, that's it. Let's say, okay, what I want to do now is, I want that, the good thing is that if we try to change here, let's change like to 12, order number 12. You see, this is where order number 12 is. You see here, it's even around a lake here. So whenever you change an order changes, you see the location here changes. It's around St. Paul, but I don't know where this location is. So now what I want to do is, I want to show this map only when we are at this stage here, when we are at a particular location, not when we are in transit or when our orders is being delivered. I want to show it only when the status is changed to on the way here. So how can we do that? We're just going to do some conditional rendering there. So let's go to page. This is where we are going to use that information. So here I'm going to say, if tracking information dot order is equals to delivered here. This is not all the condition, but let me just bring in this. Let me just fulfill the other end of this ternary operator here. So what I want to say here is that if tracking information dot order is equals to dot order dot status is equals to delivered, or here tracking info dot the location here, if the location is equals to unknown, then we just want to return null, else want to return the tracking our map. So let's go back and check this condition which we just wrote now. Okay, we are still seeing the map here because okay, it's going to reload. We are still seeing the map here because this order here is in status. So let's go to an order that is not. Let's go to 4 and see. Yes, 4 is delivered. Now we cannot see the map here because it's delivered. So let's go to an order that is probably pending. Let's come here. Let's check this one. Yes, pending. We cannot see the map. Even when it is transit, we're not going to be able to see the map. So with this now, this map section here is this tracking section here is done. Let's now turn our attention to actually editing a tracking info. We want to change the status. We also want to change the time in which the product is going to arrive, and also we want to change the location of the part of that product. So that is where we are going to be doing next. So without wasting any time, let's go back into the code here. We already wrote a page for that, which is our edit page here. Here we have page. Now the problem with this page now is we are passing this not found here. So I'm going to give it back like this because it's going to be like this. actually when we fetch our data eventually, but we are not yet fetching data now. So let's go and see if the edit page is now working. Let's come to orders. Let's edit this one. Okay, we are here. This is the order ID here. Now we need to go and get this order based on this order ID. So let's just go and get our orders and populate them in this edit page here. Let's come here. Okay, this is the edit page. We have our ID here, our search params, and this is edit. The first thing I'm going to pass here is the ID. Here, I'll pass ID like this. We need to get the ID from here. And now here I'm just going to call, I'll say const call this order info. Here I'll say get tracking order info. I'll pass the ID here. This, since we are calling this in this method, we need to make this here an asynchronous function. This is async, and here this is await. I'll come here. I need to copy this because I'll just cut it, and let's go back to edit here. Edit order, and I'll paste this here. Now this is going to be order info. If we do not have order info here, then we want to bring this not found from next navigation here. That is because if we just allow it to be ID, we can pass any ID there and we are going to have the ID anyway. But what if when they pass the ID into this method to get that that particular order, it's not going to find that order? That is when it's going to throw us an error, a not found error, and this is where we should be handling that not found error. Okay, now let's deal with this input. Since we have our order info here, we just need to pass it down here. I'll start with this for this for latitude. Here I'll say value is going to be order info dot latitude. Unfortunately, latitude here, let's see, value string or null is not assignable to string or number. So here with this error, I'll just say dot to string. Let's do the same thing for longitude. Then if you come to current location, we're going to replace this with our search. Place search. We need to import it. The place search, it accesses the default value. Remember the default value which we pass to it is going to be order info, the location, or an empty string like this. Then the arrival time and date. We'll say default value. Okay, order dot arrival time dot to ISO string. Then yeah, it's okay like this. Then we want to slice it, take from 1 to 16, or you just pass an empty string to it. Then the next is going to be the carrier. Order info dot carrier. The same for carrier number. Then when you come down now to this is the section for our status. I'll say default checked, order the status is pending, default check order the status is on the way, and here default check order the status is delivered. With this, let's try to see if we're going to get something. Oops, something wrong. Error getting order by ID. Let's reload. Let me refresh this. Let's go back to the orders and see. Let's edit this. Okay, we still see the error here. What is wrong? Error getting order by ID. Let's see. Okay, we have an error. That means it cannot show us. If you lock this ID here, let's lock this ID. Let's do it before we even call this function here, so that even if it shows an error, we're going to get the ID. Okay, we have the ID here too, but it's an array. It's an array. So what are we passing in here? Let's come back. Okay. So the reason we are having the ID the way we are having it here is because here, like this, like as an array, is because we are caching all routes here. Look up here, because we are caching all the routes after this. Let me show you. Let's come to, okay, this is it here. We are caching all routes after this. So what you can do to remove this is you can either call this, or you can do something like this. It's going to give you the ID now. Now it's going to give you 2. Yes, it's okay. Or what you can do is you can remove this spread in here, or press F2 to edit this, or you remove this like this. Now it should give you the ID. Yes, you see, now it's giving the ID as 2. So I'm going to go with this solution here, because we don't need to spread this section like this. So I'll just go with that solution. Let's come here and see if we've changed anything here also. Okay, everything is good here. Let's come back to edit order. Now we should have everything working back. So let's check our orders. Okay, we have them here. This is the latitude here, and we have the longitude here, and here, let's see, this is the location, the current location here. This is our date and time, the carrier's number, and this is the carrier's name here, and this is the status of this product here. It's pending. Now next we are going to see how we can update this information here, that when we change an information, we want to update it. And also this latitude and longitude, we don't want to be saying this latitude and longitude, so we need to make them read only. We don't want to be saying them here, so we're going to give a class of hidden to them. Let's go right down to our code here. Here I'll pass SR only for the latitude. I'll also do the same thing for the longitude, SR only. Now it's going to hide those inputs. Now let's go to our actions. We need to create some actions. Okay, this is action. In order to edit our order, this is create. We need to create another one. So export async function edit order. Well, let's just say update order. So here I'm going to get the ID of the order, which is going to be a string, and I'll get from data, which is going to be a type of from data. So here now, what we need to do is we need to get our past data from the form data. So here also const order data is equals to location here, form data dot location as a string, arrival time, yes, and status we need the latitude, longitude, and we have the carrier's number. First the carrier, now for this latitude and longitude we are actually storing them in our database as strings. So I'm going to remove this number, it's not correct like this, just say as a string here, as a string. I think these are all the properties we need for now, because we're already having our ID here. I'll say try catch. If we have an error here, I just want to return message is going to be error updating orders. Now in this try block, this is where we are going to be updating our order. So here I don't want all of this. I'm going to remove this. First we need to first put this condition. We need to check where the ID is equals to the ID which we are passing here, and the second thing here is going to be this data here, and remember this data is for order. Therefore here I can say status, we need to update the order status here, which is going to be order data dot status. Then if you come to tracking order now, you can just say update, you spread everything, the order data here like this. With this now we'll be able to update our orders. So let's go back to our page here. No, this is not where we are calling. We are calling it in this edit order. Yes, this is where we need to edit our order. So here now, since we are not using any use effect here, we do not need to make this component here a client's component. So what we can do is we can just pass in our update order here. Let's say update order, and remember it takes an ID here, so we need to pass our ID here, and also it takes form data, but for the form data you can just leave it like that. So now, but you see that here is showing us an error because this argument of form data was not provided here. So now you see that if you try to pass the ID like this, it's not going to work. So what we can do is we are going to use the JavaScript bind method in order to call this update order. Now there are a couple of benefits using the bind method here in this form like this, because it's going to secure our ID because it's our user ID. If you try to put this user ID in the input, in the form input here, it's going to be visible to the end user. So the users out there can easily know your user's ID, which is not a good practice to place user information to the open air like that. So we are going to pass it through the JavaScript bind method here. So instead of this, I'll say const order payload, or just say order payload is equals to update order. I hope that is it. Dot bind. We'll call the bind method, then we'll pass null here, and we'll pass the ID here. Now, instead for this action, I will just need to pass in my order payload like this. Now, everything is okay. So now, let's come to our place search here. Remember, we placed something here called is edit here. This is it. Is edit here. We want to set this is edit now to true here because we are editing here for this place search. What this will do now is going to give us access to the longitude and the latitude which we created when we're creating this component. So now if you go and try to type in that input, you'll see that, you see, those our latitude and longitude is gone. So let's just try to type here. You see, now try to click on this address, this other one here, or click on this one. You see, look at the address bar here. You see lat and long, right? You see latitude and longitude. So you see now that we are able to get the latitude and the longitude. So we are going to get this latitude and longitude and we'll conditionally render it in this input here. So now if you come back to your app here, let's come here. This is where we are going to get that latitude and the longitude from this search term. Let's log this search term to the console and see what it's going to give us. If you log search here, you see that search is undefined. The thing is that we are not getting the search here. We want to get the latitude and the longitude here. So what I'll do is I'll remove this search. I'll say lat and long. That's what we have in our address bar. So here I'll say lat and comma long is a string. Now let's lock the lat and long here. You're going to see them here. Okay, you see, this is a latitude and this is a longitude. Now I want to send the latitude and the longitude down to this order edit here. I'll say lat is equals to lat long is equals to long. Lat long okay. Now we have the latitude and longitude, so we just need to come here and conditionally give the values for this latitude and this longitude here. So here I'll just say if we have lat, then we want to say lat, else I want to give the one which we are taking from the database. We'll do the same thing for longitude here. If long, then we'll say long, else we want to take the one from the database. So with this now, everything is going to stay the same. So in Next.js, it's very easy to add metadata to a web application. So let's see Next.js here. Say Next.js. Let's come to the learn here and let's go to metadata here. So you see, these are the various type of metadata which you can add to a Next.js application. You have description metadata here. This metadata provides a brief overview of the web page content and is often displayed in search engine results. So we have the keyword metadata, which include keywords related to the web page content. We have open graph metadata. This metadata enhances the way a web page is represented when shared on social media. So you have the various graph open graph metadata. We have the faith icon here. So adding metadata here in Next.js is very simple. You have Next.js has a metadata API that can be used to define your application metadata. There are two ways you can add metadata to your application. We have config base by exporting a static metadata object or a dynamic generate metadata function in a layout.js or page.js file. Now file base here. This is how file base here is done. File based metadata. You can pass like some files right into your folder structure here. For example, you have this open graph image. This is going to be an image. You have this robot.txt file which provides instructions for search engine crawling, and you have this sitemap.xml which offers information about your website structure. So you also have flexibility to use these files for static metadata. So you see, here's an example of how you can include metadata here in Next.js. Just bring in the metadata function here, and you can place your title here, the description, the metadata base here. That is in case of the URL which will be served to, which this application is going to be served to. So you see, this is how metadata is easy in Next.js. You just import this metadata here and you use it throughout your application. So let's see how we can include metadata in our own application here with Next.js. I'll come back here. I'll remove this. I'm going to start here from not that you mostly put this metadata on a page, on this page at the page level here. Let's start inputting metadata here in this tracking page here. I'm going to remove this. So you saw from that explanation there on the Next.js documentation that you need to import metadata from Next here. So okay, I'm going to bring this React up here. After that, I'll say import metadata from Next. Okay, and I say export cons metadata of type metadata. Here we can say the titles is tracking, and here is just a tracking page, and for packages and history. Next, I'm going to do the same thing for my orders page here. I think this orders page, yes. Suspense. I'll just import here metadata. And here I'll say orders page for all orders, and the title here is going to be orders. I'm going to do the same thing for the create page. Okay, let's go to create. We need to bring in this metadata here, and here I'll just say create order. Create a new order for a customer. I think we are done. We already did for this edit here. Okay, I'll remove this. We didn't do anything for the edit, so I'm going to write its own metadata here also. Edit order. So you can do this for all your pages. Now let's go into the overview page now. Dashboard. So I'm going to also do the same thing for I think it was our hero page. Let's see. I'll say import metadata. So here is just the home page here. This is welcome to tracker here. Then now let's go to the layout page here. This is where, now in the layout page, there's a little trick which you can do so that whatever title which you passed into your application is going to be inherited here. So if you look at the layout here, we already had metadata here, description, track anything at any time here. But what we want to do is we want to make this title to be inherited so that every other metadata page is going to inherit this title. So instead of just passing the title as a text like this, you can pass the title here and you can say template here. You give a template like this, and here we'll just say tracker, and to this template now you can pass a name, a default name for it. This is going to be default tracker. We don't yet have a metadata base URL here, so I'm going to leave it like this for now. I'm just going to leave it like this for now, but when we deploy the application, I'm going to add the metadata base URL. So right now, let's try to add some file-based metadata into our application, because you heard that from what we saw in the documentation here. They said here that you can either pass in, there are two ways. You have the config base, where you pass it in your static object, in your layout.js file and in your page.js files. And also there is a file base where you can pass files. So I'm going to pass an open graph image here. I already have the image. I'm going to pass it, right? You can copy the image from the GitHub repository. So I'll come back to the code here. So this image needs to be at the root of your application. So I'm going to say Ctrl K W to remove everything we have, so that I come to the root of the application here, and I'll say reveal in File Explorer. This is my image here. So it's a little bit heavy. Okay, this other image here is a little bit smaller here. This is 37 kilobytes here. Okay, this one is good. So this is all I'm going to have to show you for now. When we deploy the application, we are going to add more file-based metadata here. So you see, this is the image which we just uploaded now. So with this, what we are going to do next is we're going to talk about authentication, because no web application is complete without authentication. So we're going to see how we can use authentication in Next.js. Now, before we actually implement our authentication, there is a few things which we are not yet sorting out. If you come to others here, look at this delete button. We never talked about this delete here. So we are just going to heavily give the functionality to delete an order here. You see, this is it, but nothing is happening. We're having a full page reload here. And also, if you come to tracking here, let's just put a tracking number here. Let's say 2. Yes, here, if you go to your console, let's go to developer console, sorry, or press F12 in order to take us to the developer console here. Okay, right now you don't see any message here because this was just loaded, but let's give a hard reload here. If you give a hard reload here, you're going to see the same message which we saw earlier here. You see this dashboard, that this internal server error. We're having this 500 status code here, this error. So if you come to your application, you are going to see that same error down here. So the reference error window is not defined. It's the same thing that happened earlier when we were using the place auto complete package. So we are going to fix this. I'm going to start with this one here, with this here. In this file, this is where we are going to do the work here. Let's see where we are importing our map. Okay, this is a tracking map here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in an import from Next.js here. I'll say import dynamic from next dynamic like this, and here down here I'll just remove this tracking map here. Instead here I'll say const tracking map. We'll call this dynamic. Then we're going to get the tracking map now from here. Let's say UIs, and this is going to be tracking slash tracking history. Yes, that's where the map is, in that tracking history. And now we just set server-side rendering here to false. Okay, just by importing like this, that error is going to go away. We're going to solve that error. So let's try and see. Okay, this is hello here. Okay, we are having two imports here. How is that possible? Okay. Okay, this here is not the tracking history here. We don't want to get by the tracking history here. Let's say this is going to be map, not tracking history. This map. Okay, I'm sorry guys, that's supposed to be map. Let's go back and check. Oops, can't read the property. Let's reload. Okay, we have the map now. Let's try to see if we're going to see that error again. Yes, it's gone. If you refresh the page, you have our map. Let's check our console. Okay, it's clean. So with this, we have solved this other error. Now let's go and see how we can delete an order here. We can delete one of these orders here. So I'll come back here. Let's go to actions. So we have the actions here. I'm going to come right down here. This is update. This is create. Okay, this is create an order. Now I want to export async function delete order. It's going to take an ID of type string. Now here we just want to revalidate the path. We don't want to redirect the user here. We just want to revalidate this part here. So I'm going to remove this redirect because we are already in the orders page. So there's no need to redirect the user back to that very page. We just need to revalidate the path, and we're going to see our delete work. So let's go to actions where we have our delete buttons, not actions. Let's go to buttons. I think we had that button somewhere down here. Buttons. Okay, this is it. Let's come down. This is delete here. So I'm just going to give a form here. I'll say action, and in this action now I'm going to call our delete functionality as a const delete order, and here I'll say async. This is going to be await here, and I'll make this an asynchronous function. Async, and we want to call the delete order here is expecting an ID. Now what we don't have to do it like this here, because since we are passing an ID here, we need to call the bind method here, the JavaScript bind method here. So here I'll say dot bind null, and we'll pass our ID here. Now we can just pass the delete here, delete order. Okay, great. Just like this, we are going to be able to delete the order now. Let's go and try. Let's try to delete this one here. Delete. Okay, it's taking some time. The whole page is refreshing. Let's see. Let's delete this one. This all in one skin ointment. Okay, it's gone. I hope you saw it there. Let's take off this one too. Let's see. Yes, it's working. So the delete part is done now. Now we can go and concentrate on our authentication part. Yes, we're going to do authentication now. So what I've done is I've just cleaned up our files, and we are left with only one file here, which happens to be our prisma.txt file here. Now what I want you to do is you're going to first create a new file at the root of your application. Make sure you're at the root of the application before you create these files here. I'm going to create the first file here, and I'll call this auth.config.ts. You create another one. We're going to create 3 of them here, and we'll just call this one auth.tx. And the last one is going to be a middleware file. So we'll call this middleware.txt. next.ts. So with these three files in the root of your application, now let's start with this config here. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'll do here is I'll import. This is going to be an import from, okay, we don't yet have the next-auth package, so let's go and create the next-auth package before we come and import what we need to import here. I just started coding, so let's open up our terminal here. Let's come to this one. What I want you to do is just type npm install next-auth at beta. Now we are installing the beta version here because that is the version that's compatible with Next.js 14. So make sure you put this at beta here and you hit enter. Let's wait for it to install. Okay, it's finished installing, so I'm going to hide back this terminal. Yes, okay, let's go back to our auth here, and we are going to get, let's say, from next-auth here. Say next-auth. So what are we going to be getting from here? We have next-auth configuration. We're going to use that, and I'll say export const auth config is equals to this. Yes, now what I want here is, I'll just say satisfies next config, like that, so that we implement every required property of this configuration file here. This is coming from next-auth config. So the first thing we're going to pass here is, we have the pages here. As you can see it there, I'll say sign in here. It's just going to be /login. That is our sign in route here. Now, why this page is here and why this sign in route here? If you hover your mouse here, they say specify the URL to be used if you want to create custom sign in, sign out, and error pages. So pages specified will overwrite the corresponding built-in pages. So we already have a login page. Yes, so we are just telling next-auth here that we don't want to use their own pages. We want to use our own page which we built, and this is the location where it is found. Now the next is, we want to get callbacks here. So what are these callbacks here? Callbacks are asynchronous functions you can use to control what happened when an auth related action is being performed. So callbacks allow you to implement access control without a database or integrate with external database or API. So it's very simple here. We use this to grant access to our application here. This callback, we're going to write some logic to grant access to certain sections of our application. So in this callback, the first thing I'm going to use here is the authorize here. Authorize, I'll say authorize. And this authorize, we're going to get auth here. And we're also going to get the request object here. In this request object, I want to get the next URL here. So with this here, I'll say const is login. This is the logic which we are going to use in order to log into the application here. Here, we want to check if the user is logged in. We'll just say if auth.user here, because when you're logging, you're going to have the user object in this auth here. So that's why we are calling auth.user. You get the user object. Now, it's logged in here, supposed to be Boolean, but this here is an object. So we need to convert this into a Boolean by just doing it like this. So next, I want to say const is on dashboard. We want to get the path of our dashboard because this is the admin section of this application. So we want to get the dashboard path so that only the admins are able to come to this page here. So we'll say next URL dot path name. We want to get the path name here, and we want to check if that path name starts with dashboard like this /dashboard. Then we know that we are on the dashboard page here, because all the URLs of our application, they start with dashboard apart from the login page. So that's why we are checking it like this here. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to check if here is on dashboard, if this user is on is the dashboard, and here I'll check again if he's logged in. Now if the user is logged in, we just want to return here true. Yes. Now come to this auth here and look at the return type of this auth here. Let's come here. Invoke when a user needs authorizing using middlewares. So you can override this behavior by returning a next response. So you see that here, just this is as is, it rightly states here, this is an authorization middleware. So here they will write the logic that's going to be able to authorize the user to use our application. Yeah. So if we return true here, that means this user is able to return the application. If they're logged in here, they're able to use every route that starts with dashboard in our application. So I hope that is clear. Okay. Now, if the user is not logged in here, we just want to return what? False here. We just want to return false. That means the user will be redirected back to the home page, back to the login page here. Now, let's say else if is login here. What do we want to do now? We want to return here a response. We want to use the response object here, response dot redirect. We want to redirect the user here back to the dashboard page. Say new URL. Let's get this one here, and here I'm just going to pass /dashboard, and I'll pass the next URL here. So what this is going to do is just if the user is logged in right here, if the user is logged in, we want to direct the user to the dashboard page. That's what we are specifying here. So since here we need to just return true from this method here. Now if you look here, you'll see that this here is not still satisfied. Next-auth here, this next-auth config here is not still satisfied because we have not yet provided our providers, which happen to be a required object here. This is a required, yes, we need to provide our providers here is required. Now for these providers, I'm just going to give this as an empty array like this, because we are going to provide this provider right inside this auth page here, in this auth here. So now before we even go there, let's come to this middleware here. We need to do some work in this middleware file here. Let's come. So here I'm going to say import here next-auth from next-auth this, and I'll say import auth config. You know the auth config we are talking about, what we just creating now. I'm importing it here, and what we want to do with it is, let's say export. We want to export. The default here is going to be next-auth and config. We are exporting next-auth here, and we are passing the configuration file which we just created here. And what we want to do is you just have to call this auth here now. Yes, just call auth like this. So now we want to configure this middleware to run on a specific route in our application. So here I'll say export const config here like this, and here we're going to say matcher. Now this matcher here is going to, we are going to put a regular expression here. I'll get this regular expression from Next.js. You can put any regular expression here, but you should exclude, you should place the parts which you want to be accessible by this middleware, the part which you don't want to be accessible by this middleware rather here. So here I'm just specifying here that any part that starts with API here, yes, this middleware is going to skip it. Any part that starts with next static is going to skip it, and any part that starts with next/images and also the PNGs here, want to exclude images. All, in fact, want to exclude our static assets from this middleware from running on our static assets here. So this is what this middleware here is going to be doing. And remember here we are just exporting this auth object here. You can read here, say a universal method to interact with auth next-auth in your Next.js application after initializing next-auth in auth.js. So you need to initialize it right in this file. So these are the rules which we are following here from the Next.js documentation, the next-auth documentation actually. So now let's come to next-auth here, to this auth file, and see how we can initialize the application here, our login functionality here. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I want to first get the users here. I'll say const get user, say async like this, and here I'll say await Prisma. Now I want to get with only one user, not many users. First let's bring this Prisma object here, Prisma dot user. Here we just say find unique where email is equals to, we need to bring in an email address here. Since this is email, you can just remove this here, no problem. And let's just wrap this in a try catch so that we catch any errors if they occur. And here I'm just going to say console log error, and we throw back a new error here. So we have the users here. Next, let's get our next-auth here. I'll say next-auth here. Now the first thing here is asking for us a configuration, and we already have our configuration file here. So I'm just going to spread it because we need to overwrite it here in this file. So the first thing is we'll spread our auth config like this. We don't yet have it, so let's bring it. Okay, the import is not coming, so I'm going to import next config from this like this. Okay, now the second thing we're going to have here is providers. As I told you here, we're going to override the providers here, and in this providers array here, you can provide what the credentials here, credentials like this. So in these credentials, the first thing you're going to do in these credentials is we want to implement an authorization method. We want to implement an authorization method here, because here there's a credential provider allows you to handle sign in with arbitrary credentials such as username and password, domain, or two-factor authentication. So this is what this provider, this credential provider does here. Now there are many providers which you can use with next-auth here. You can use Google, you can use Facebook authentication, you can use TikTok, you can use all the social medias providers right inside this object here. So but now we are using this credential that supports passwords and emails, and that's what we're going to be going for here. So now we need to call an asynchronous method here in here. So if you here, okay, this is the method here. It's expecting an authorization here. So let's get the authorization object here. This is going to be an asynchronous. Okay, like this. Now if you hover your mouse over this authorized function, which we need to implement now, you say the expected type comes from property authorized, which is declared here. Okay, no, that's not what I want to show you. Let's come to okay here. Now they're telling us here that this gives you full control over how you handled the credential received from the users. So here you see that with this authorized method, whatever you receive from the users, you can use it here however you like. This is where you're going to receive the emails, the password here, right in this credentials object here. So let's see how we're going to use this. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'll say const, I'll say past credentials like this. Now here we are going to bring our very good friend Zot here in order to check for validation for our input fields before we continue here. So let's say Zot, Z stands for Zot, yes, dot object. Remember the syntax for using Zot schema. You first call an object, and now we need to pass the email. Let's say email is going to be Zot the string, and password is going to be Zot, not Prisma. Password is going to be Zot string, and I want to also give another constraint for this password. I want to set the minimum to 8 like this. Remember that in order to pass this Zot object that we can use for validation, also we can use it to validate this input field, we need to use the save pass here. Let's say save pass here, and here after the save pass you don't need to pass the credentials here. So we'll pass the credentials which we are receiving from the users from this authorization, this authorized method here. Now with this pass here, we can check. Now let's see. Yes, I can check now if past credentials, let's say pass credential.success. Yes, if past credentials.success Then what do I want to do in case everything was successful? The first thing I'm going to do is I want to first get the email and the password from these credentials, this pass credentials.data. Remember, this object here is going to return this here is going to return us this data here. So we can destructure our email from the data and also our password from this data object. Remember, we did the same thing when we were creating an order. So I hope you haven't forgotten that. That's the same thing we are doing here. So now I want to say const user is equals to await. I want to get the user by just passing the email here. Now this is not all. We'll check if there is no user. This is normal validation stuff which you must do here. Want to return null from this method. If there's no user, want to return null. Now if there is actually a user, what do we want to do? The first thing is we want to compare our passwords to the one which we have in the database. I'll say const compare password. Okay, we are using the bcrypt library here, and we are calling this compare method here. It's going to take in the passwords which we are receiving from the user here. This is it, and compare it with the password which we are taking from the database here. This one here. Now this is the password which we are taking here from the user, while this here is the password which we are taking from the user. We're calling user.password. Yes. So let's bring in this bcrypt package here. We'll say import bcrypt. This is bcrypt.js, not just bcrypt. Say bcrypt.js. Fantastic. Now we want to check if comparing this password was the result of the comparing this password. Let's see if compare password here wants to return the users here. If we compared this password, everything was okay, we just want to return the user. Now coming here, here we are checking if pass credentials is successful. What in the case which it doesn't is not successful, here we are going to skip all of this. If pass credential is not successful, we are going to skip all of this. We're not going to do anything. We are not going to compare the user in the database here, and we are not going to authenticate the user here. So we're just going to skip this line of code here, and we just return null here. When we return null here, the user is not going to be logged in. They're not going to be authenticated. At that point, we can even log a message to the console saying that invalid credentials. Let's just say invalid credentials like this, to tell the user that maybe they did something wrong, they didn't provide a wrong password. Yes, so we'll just tell the user that they've provided a wrong password, maybe an email address, but we're just saying invalid credentials. We don't want to hint them that is their password or is their email which is incorrect. Okay, now this auth part here is done. It's done. Now we need to open your configuration file here. There's something you need to write in your configuration file. So here we have this auth secret here, this auth secret. Now this is a secret which you are going to use in order to authenticate with the application. It's just like your JSON web token secret here. Now, so what you can do to get this secret is you can just go to your any website here. You can come to the internet here and just type like key, let's say key generator here. You can choose this one here, and it's going to give you some random keys. You can just copy one of them here. I'm going to copy this one, and you can head over to your code and you just replace what you have here with this key. But make sure you type it exactly like this. You have this auth secret. It should be like this, because what is going to happen is that next-auth is going to look for this environment variable here. It's going to infer this environment variable from within next-auth. So it's going to try to look for this environment variable here. So you make sure you have this here. So with that said, let's go back and create our form. We're going to create our form now. No, this is not it. Let's come to, we have that form where, let's go up here. Let's go to UI, login form. Okay, you have the login form here. So what I'm going to do is, rather than for me creating this login form, I'm just going to paste the code here. Yes, I'm going to paste the code here so that we can move a little bit faster. Okay, this is our login form here. We just need to bring the input group here, import, and this dispatch. We don't yet have this dispatch here, so, and our button. Yes, I'm gonna remove this pending here. Okay, this is the login. I think everything is good in this method right now. So let's try to navigate to the login. Voila, we have our login form here. This is our login form. Now, let's go and set up our action in order to authenticate the user, because you need to, at the end, you need to authenticate the user in your action. So let's go over to actions. Action. Okay, this is delete here. We need to create an authentication action here. This is going to be function. We'll say authenticate user, and here we are going to remember here the first thing you get here is your state here. Say priv state. This is going to be of type string. I just want to give this state here just to be a string here, or okay, or undefined. And the next here is going to be the form data, which is going to be the type of form data. So here I'll say try catch. Now in this error object here, we want to check if error here is an instance of auth error. So we need to bring in auth error here like this. If this is an instance of auth error, what we can do is we can say switch. You can use if else statements here, but I'm going to use a switch here, or switch over the error the type here. Now I'm going to give some cases here as a case. The case number one is going to be if this is a credential sign in error message here. What we want to do is we just want to return an error message here saying that invalid credentials like this. And here we can just give now a default case. If nothing yet happened, let's return an error message here, says something when error signing, okay, like this, error signing in. Now after this, we can just throw back this error here. Let's say throw, this is throw whatever error which we are going to get from this method here. If it is not an auth error, we're going to throw back the error like this. But if it's an auth error, we want to first check if it is credential signing in error, then we want to give this message. I hope it is clear here. So if you come now to this try block, this is where we are going to create our users. We don't even need to create this cons here. We can just say await here. Here we need to call our sign in method, but I think I didn't export that sign in method, so let me come and export the sign in method here. We need to export this sign in method from this auth file here. So I'll come here, I'll say const here. There are some few methods which you can get from here. The first is going to be sign in. This method is going to help us to sign to the application. Here we also have another method, sign out. This is going to help us to sign out from the application. All of these methods are provided by next-auth for us. And the last here, I'm going to have this auth here. We're going to use this auth to get our user's instance that we can use throughout the application. The currently logged in user, we're going to get it through this auth property here. Okay, now let's go back to our actions here. We can now call the sign in here from we're not going to be taking it from this next auth here. I don't know why it's not showing up here. So sign in, let's see, am I even exporting it? Okay, we are not exporting. We need to export it here. We need to export all of this. I'm sorry for that, guys. So here we'll say sign in. You see, do not take this one from next-auth here, because we are creating our own that we are going to use here. We'll not be using this one which they're importing from next-auth. Take this one which you created here. And here, what we are going to pass here is credentials. Here, you see, as I told you before, that next-auth here has a lot of providers which we can use. You have the credential. This is what we are using. You have Discord. You can use the Discord server here. You have Dribble, Dropbox, email, Facebook, Foursquare, GitHub, GitLab, Google. So the list continues. It's very long. So you can most of the social media or social logins are provided here. You have Twitter here. You have Zoom here. So, but what we are interested in here is this credentials here. So we're just going to pass the credentials, and here we pass our form data. Remember, this form data is what is going to this form data is going to be passed right inside this authentication method here. So the form data, this is what we are going to be receiving here in this object here. So yep, and with this, I think this authentication step here is done. This authentication step is done. Yep, authenticating users. Now let's come to the login form. We need to bring in that authentication method here. We'll say const. Here we need to bring in the state, and here we need to, I'll just say error state, so that you know that this is an error state. And here we're going to have dispatch. We'll just say use form state. And for this use form state, what are we going to be passing in here? They say the first object here is our action, and our action is called authenticate user. And the second here is going to be our default state. Our default state, remember we said it can either be that error, which is a string, or undefined. So I'm just going to pass undefined here. Yes, everything is looking good. Now we just need to pass this dispatch here. Dispatch. Great. Now what about this error state here? Whenever, if we get an error, I'm going to place that error right here. We're going to check if there's error. If there's error state, we just want to place the error right after this button here, because this error is a string, so there's no need to call .message on it again, because it's already a string. So it's okay like this. So now I think we are ready to test this here. We're ready to test this. So let's test. Okay, let's refresh and see. You are importing, oh my god. So here, this login form is a client component you're using. You don't need to forget that. Say use client. Let's come back here. You're importing a component that needs form state. It only works on client component. Yep, we've already worked on that. I'm going to remove this. Yes, just try to refresh the application. Now we have the login page here. Let's put in some login users here. I'm going to try this one, and remember, all the passwords for these users are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Now let's start by putting a wrong password and say you login. Yes, you see our invalidation message here, invalid credentials. That means this one of this is wrong here. So let's put the correct one now. Let's say 7 8. Now I'm just going to hit enter. Okay, you see guys, we are redirected right back into this dashboard page here. You see, now we are logging. Let's go and check if we're logging by, let's bring in this authenticate method here in our page. This is our overview page here. Let's just bring that authentication method here. I'll say const user user info await auth here. So is this a promise? Let's log user info to the console and see. Yes, you see, we have the user here. You see this user, the email is niklaus33. Yes. So if you say .user now, you're going to get the user. Yes, this is the user email. Now, the problem is that we are only getting the user email. So we need to be able to get the user's profile picture, the ID, and also their username. So how are we going to do that? So let's go back to auth config here. We need to provide some additional configuration right inside this auth config here. So the first thing I'm going to the first callback again I'm going to give here is JWT. Yes, you can see JWT, it expects a token and the user. So what we are going to do with this JWT here is that we are going to pass in some additional property right into this JWT token here. This JWT callback here. We'll first check if user here. Then if we have user, I'll say const current user is equals to user, like this. Now we have an error here because we need to return the token from this method here. Error goes away. Now if you hover your mouse over this JWT here, that callback, they say this callback is called whenever a JSON web token is created, that is at sign in, or updated, that is whenever a session is accessed in the client. Its content is forwarded to the session callback, where you can control what should be returned to the client. Anything else will be kept from your front end. So you see, it is very clear here. They're telling us here that here this method, this user object you are seeing here, is going to be available only during sign up. Now this method is going to be updated whenever we are receiving a new request from the server. So at that time, this user object is not going to be available. So this object here is going to be available only during sign up, when we are signing up. So now we are checking if this user object is available. Then we want to set the token .id to current user .id here, and also the token .name, want to set it to okay, for us to give type safety here, I'm going to set the type for this user here. I'll say as user, and I'm going to take this user from Prisma clients because that is where we have our type. So you see now that here, instead of current user here, I'll say user name. Okay, now for our email, we are already having our email, so I'll say token dot our picture. The picture is going to be the current user dot avatar, is going to give us our avatar. So the next here is, I'll just say token dot this sub is going to give us the ID here. So I'll just say current user dot ID, like this. So I think this is okay for now. Now remember that here they told us that this method here, they say its content is forwarded to the session callback, where you can control what should be returned to the client. So you can create another callback here. This is going to be the session callback, and this session callback here, it takes this token. So what I want to do with this session callback here is, I'll just check here if session dot user, you see it also has this user here. So if you hover your mouse over this session here, you're going to see some explanation about the session. See, this callback is called whenever a session is checked, that is invoke the API / session endpoint using use session. So by default, only a subset, email, name, and images of the token is returned for increased security. Yes, for increased security. if you want to make something available to you, if you want to make something available, you add it to the token through the JWT callback. You have to explicitly forward it here to make it available to your client. So everything which we passed here, we want to make it accessible to the client from this method here. Right now, let's just pause the implementation for this for now. Yes, let's just pause it like this. I'll just highlight this so that we see what is going to be returned from this method here. Let's go to overview. Was it our overview page here? Let's try to log out of the application. Let's just create our functionality to log out at once. I'll say P. Let's go to sidebar. Yes. Where do we log out? Let's see where we logged out. Okay, this is log out here. We have this form here. So here I'm just going to give an action here, and in this action I just want to pass in our sign out function here. So sign out. No, you're not going to take this from Next.js. We're going to take this from this is sign in. Let's see. I'm going to remove this back here. I want to take this from the root of our application. Let's say I think we need to go out again like this. Okay, now we have this auth here. Okay, we need to get this from auth here. This is sign out, and here we just need to pass the sign out. We are receiving an error here because we need to make this a server action. If we look at this error here, we need to make this a server action here. So what I'm going to do is I'll just do everything in here. I'll just pass use server here. Yes, you just need to pass use server there. And also what we're going to do is, oh, actually this here is an object, so we need to create but a function. In order to do this, we need to create a function like this, and here in this function we say use server, and here we can now call our sign out. We're going to make this function an asynchronous function too. Okay, I think this now is okay. We're able to sign out of the application now. Let's go and check. Let's try to refresh. Okay, let's log out and see. Okay, nothing is happening. Okay, nothing is happening. That means we surely have an error. Let's check what is wrong here. Let me see whether we have an error. Okay, we have an error here. They say unhandled rejection. Okay, let's see. Okay, since this is an asynchronous method here, we need to await it here. Oh, my head is going off here. So let's try this again. Let's log out. Yes, we are logging out now. Let's log in again as this user. Let's type 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. You log in. Yes, login. So let's check now. If you go back to our overview page here, yes, you see that we have the user's name here. We have the user's name, Christy, on. We have their email address there, and we have their avatar here. So what we don't have is their ID, but we also need that ID. So we need to go back to that auth page. Let's go back to auth here. Let's uncomment this and finish work with this section, this section here. So here we'll check if the session.user here. Then what we want to do is we want to just set the session.user.id to be equal to the user, the not the user, token dot sub token dot sub here. I will say as a string, because this sub here is going to be a string like this. And now we can just return the session from here, but we are having a type error here. So what I can do to get this error, I'll just say also this have to be a token, but we still get the error here. Then we need to provide some type definitions for this here. I'll say session is going to come from session, and JWT is going to be this token is going to be JWT. And of course this here have to be optional like this. So the error is gone. Now the reason why we are setting this to optional is that this session here, this session, it can either return a session and a token. It can return a session with a token or a session with a user. So here we are getting a session with a token. So that's why we are putting it as optional here, because it can also be a user here. So now with this, I think if we go now, we will be able to get the user ID. Yes, you see down here we have the user ID. If you go to let's go, where is our dashboard page here? I think now, yes, we have the user ID of 2. This is it, ID of 2. So now we can use this function anywhere, this auth function now anywhere. So let's go to our sidebar, Control P, let's say sidebar, and this sidebar, I think this was okay, it's a client component. Yes, so I'm just going to call, I'll first of all make this component here an asynchronous component. Then we can call our auth here as a const. I'm just going to destructure the user here. I say await auth like this, and here I'll just get the user. Okay, it's complaining that user is declared but its value never read. Let's lock the user here. Let's see. Okay, we have the user here. Rather than destructuring the user from the here like this, I'll just say this is going to be auth. Let's just say auth user like this. And now here I'll remove this. If we come down here now, where we have our image here, I'm going to remove this, which will copy it from Unsplash. I remove all of this, and now I can say auth here dot user dot avatar. This was avatar like this. Okay, my bad, this is not avatar here, this is actually image. If you look down here, this is the object we are returning, the image, the email, the name, and the ID. So this is going to be image. Okay, this is the IntelliSense here. I'll remove this. Oh, we actually need it. So for the alt text here, I'm just going to give the username here. Yes, and for this, we'll give the username. So you see that now. Let's see. Okay, you see the right user is here. So let's check. Let's try to log out again. Yes, we are logged out. Let's create another. Let's log in with another user here. Yes, we are logging as another user. You see, there's a user's profile here. So the login and signing out functionality is working. Now, when we are creating an order, we were passing our ID. We're passing our ID down. That we're hard coding that ID. So now is the time for us to change that functionality. We don't want to be hard coding our ID. So let's go and change that. So we need to do that work in the create. Let's say order create. Okay, this is it here. Now this order create here is a client component, but we can import that function only in a server component. So let's go to I'll say page, the create page here. In this create page, this is where we are using this create order. And remember that we can pass a server, we can pass a prop from a server component to a client component. So I'm going to get that auth here. I'll say const the user object here. This is going to be auth user await auth. Let's bring this auth from here, auth. So right now we can pass here the user. We can pass the user inside this order create here, but we actually need only the user ID. So I'm going to just pass ID like this, and this is going to be auth user dot id like this. So if you come here, I'm going to get the ID here, and I'll give a type for it that is going to be a string like this. So now here I'll say const, I'll call this create order, and here I'll just say create order bind. I'm going to call the create order dot bind, then we pass in the ID here. So it's complaining here that we need to pass in. If you check here, you see type string has no property in common with type state here. That's because if you come to our I think this functionality is, let's come to create. Okay, this is create. So this is giving us a string or undefined. If you hover your mouse here, say type is of type string or undefined here. But here I'll just say as a string. This error will go away. But now we are left with this one here, order create. Now we're having this error here because in our create action, in our actions here, let's come to where we are creating an order. In our actions, let's say upload. This is upload image. Okay, this is create an order here. You see that we are passing the previous state here. Rather than passing only the previous state, we need to get the ID also. See ID, which is of type string like this. Now we need to pass that ID here. Okay, now let's come to create the order here. Is expecting an ID, and here it also needs an initial state. So here we can just pass now this create order bind right into this use form here, because we are already providing the initial state here. We are providing the initial state, and we have already satisfied the condition for this bind here by passing this ID here. So here we can just say create order bind. So like this, now you see everything is back to normal. Everything is okay. So this authentication was a long one. It's a good one for you to process, go over the steps again and see how it's been done. So now let's check to see if we can create an order still with this current implementation. So I'll come here. I'll look for an order here. I'll check this. No, this is not. I'll check this one. The destination here, I'll give what done 808, and the description here, I'll just give something random like this. Then the product name here, I'm just going to say sales of drinks. The price here, I'll just give it to like 100, and create. Okay, you see, we were redirected back here. It took a little bit of time, but in the end, we redirected here. This is the product which we created, sales of drink. See, there's a creation date, the price, everything. And if you look here, we are logged in as this guy here, who's happened to be the last user. Let's go to the dashboard. That was the last user. You see now that the last user have two products, while at first they have only one. So you see they have a pending and a delivered on. So if you try to change the status of this pending on, which they're just from creating this order, let's change it. Oh, this is tracking. You see it is pending now. Let's go to edit here. I just want to edit it from pending to on the way. Am I sure this is the order? Let's cancel. This is the order here, this one. Okay, I want to put it on the way, and you edit the carrier's number. I'll just give this. Carrier here is okay. The delivery time here, can set it to the 7. Edit. Okay, you see now that it's on the way here. So if you go back to the dashboard, voila, you see that this last user, the orders is changed. They have one delivered and one on the way here. This last user. This last user is this Levis here. So now I think this is everything I had to show you in this application, and this was a good journey. I was to be on this or building this little dashboard application with you. So from this point upward, what we're going to do is we're going to deploy this application to Vercel. Yes, and also we're going to look at other deployment options, because you might have used your Vercel Postgres database on a different project, so you might not want to delete that database just for this small project. So we're going to explore other options for deployment. But if you have a paid Vercel account, that's okay, because you can have multiple Vercel Postgres database. But if you are working on a hobby account, you're going to have access only to one database. So with that said, we're going to look at deployment next.